Okay, so we're at the bottom of Samach Aleph Amid Aleph 61a4. So what the Gemara was talking about, and we're going to still talk about a little bit more, is that if you have something that's very strong smelling or vinegary, and someone smells it and doesn't eat it, they could become very in danger of losing their life if they don't eat it. And the very last thing we spoke about, there were two righteous people. One didn't feed his waiter until after the course, and one fed it before. So for one of them, Eliyahu didn't come, and one Eliyahu did come. The one who Eliyahu came that he fed the waiter at the beginning of the course before he ate it, the Eliyahu learned with him. So it definitely is. It's so this is brought down in Shulchan Aruch as a halacha. From the Rambam, I'm not sure that it's an obligation or it's only midas chasidus. It's the pious way to act. Because the Rambam brings it down. Now the Rambam doesn't bring down things that are midas chasidus. He only brings down things that are halacha, but he brings down this halacha in the context of like Hasidim Harishonim or something like that, under context of pious people would feed the waiter first. So it's possible that the one who did not give the food to their waiter beforehand, Eliyahu didn't come. It's not necessarily that he did something wrong, but it's possible that Eliyahu would only come if you do things even lifnim mishur sadin, beyond the obligations of halacha, or above and beyond the call of duty, as my sixth grade Rabbi would put it. So it could be for that reason. I think there's a Gemara in Brachos where Yeshua ben Levi didn't daven for a certain person, so an unusual thing happened, and Eliyahu stopped learning with him. So for certain people of high stature, even the lack of so he fed it just a little bit late. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi didn't, from the fact that he was passive and didn't do something, so Eliyahu stopped coming to him for a while. So certainly, if you're passive, it's usually not an avera to be passive because you're passive. But for Eliyahu there's higher standards. Even if you failed, if you took no action, that's not a problem. So it's possible that just failing to perform something that was lifnim mishur sadin, beyond the requirements of the law, would be a reason for Eliyahu to stop learning. So we are on like the second to last line. It's 61a4, the last paragraph. Meimar Marzutra Rav Ashi Havu Yasvi Apischa Deve Izgor Malka. Meimar Marzutra and Rav Ashi were by the entrance of the palace to King Izgor, who was a Persian king. Chalav Azal Aturga de Malka. So the king's royal person was bringing the food. Chazich Rav Ashi Marzutra, as we turn to Samach Aleph Amid Beis, the Chaver Ape. So he saw that Marzutra became very pale. His face became white. Chaver Ape, literally, Chaver is white and Ape, his face, meaning he understood that he smelled the food and he was getting extremely sick if he wouldn't be able to taste the food. So Shokabatzbate, so Rav Ashi took with his finger from the food, Anachle bepume, and put it in Marzutra's mouth. Amarle, so the royal helper there said to Rav Ashi, Afsato Sudu Malka, you've caused this meal of the king to be, I have to throw it out now because you touched it. I assume it's because it doesn't say, Rashi doesn't exactly say why. You could say the reason is because someone stuck their finger in it. You could say also that it was supposed to be a certain presentation, and once the finger got put in, they didn't mind that the finger got in there, but the presentation could have been lost. I don't know. It's more than one possibility. Rashi doesn't say Amrulei Amai Tiavet Hachi. So Rashi says that this is because before it was singular Amrulei, so that was the king's helper who was holding the food, and now it's Amrulei, They said plural. So Rashi says this is talking about police officers or security of the king. Said to Rav Ashi, why did you do this? Amar Lahus, Rav Ashi said, Man da Abed Hachi Pasal Machal de Malka. Whoever makes food like this, they make food that's not fit for the king. It's not okay to be given to the king. Or Rashi says the person who makes food like this is not fitting that the king could eat food from this person. So Amr Amai, so they said, what's wrong with it? Amr Lahu Davar Acher Chazoibe. I saw Davar Acher, something else, a foreign thing, which means pig. I saw a pig in it. Or Rashi seems to say that it wasn't just pig, it was leprous pig meat. So Badku v'lo ashkachu, they looked in it and they did not find any of this leprous pig meat that Rav Ashi claimed there. So they were going to, they wanted to, punish Rav Ashi. Shakaletz base anachalea. So Rav Ashi took the guy's finger and put it in one place. Amar hachami badkiu. Rav Ashi said, did you check this particular place? Badku ashkachu. So they looked at that particular place and they found this leprous pig meat or whatever. Amrule Rabbanan. So the Rabbanan said to Rav Ashi. So I don't know if it was the other. It seemed to not be because there were three of them. There was Rav Ashi, Marzutra, and Amemar. But it could be that afterwards they asked Rav Ashi, my time of Samcha Anisa. Why did you rely on a miracle to be saved? Because they were going to put you in jail or to kill you if you wouldn't find the meat, and there was no meat like that there. So the fact that you did that and then miraculously they saw the piece of meat that you claimed, why did you rely on a miracle? You're not allowed to rely on a miracle. So I saw that there was a spirit of tsaras on that guy's face. So Rashi says the Parcha Yilave on Marzutra. So he saw some type of tsaras on Marzutra. So because he already saw that, or because so the chivra, the whiteness, the paleness, whether this was the paleness of Marzutra or something else, Rav Ashi used that as to say that so that the cause of him looking like this, not that he told the king's policeman that, was because of this tzara. So it was a likely excuse that he could make based on what he saw on Marzutra's face.
Why did Rabbi actually feed him the
It wasn't pig meat at all, or it doesn't seem that it was pig meat at all. He told them that the chef put this pig meat in there, or it is possible that this halacha, when you smell the certain type of smell, you're going to die. You're allowed to eat not kosher food for sakanos nefashos. So I don't know that there was any pig meat actually in here at all, or Rav Ashi claimed that they put some in. Yeah, so I don't know what religion the king Agzor kept. So if they ate pig meat or not, it certainly was before the time of Islam. So that they certainly weren't keeping halal back then because there was no halal yet. But but it just seems to be that this halacha that if you smell a certain type of food, you have to eat it or else you're going to die. So obviously, if it was not kosher food, also. So Rashi says that he saw it on Marzutra, and that's why he used this thing. Now, there's when you learn this Gemara, so So something a similar Gemara that comes to mind was Elisha, was it a Baal Kanafayim, that there was this in a Gemara in Shabbos in the time of a decree against doing mitzvos. A certain Amora was wearing tefillin, and they saw him wearing tefillin, and they were chasing him. And he took it off and was holding it in his hands. He said, "What's in your hands?" He said, "I'm holding a dove, or dove's wings." And they said, "Let me see." And he went like this, and the dove flew away. So they said, "How could you say that? It wasn't true." So he said, "Am Yisrael is compared to a Yonah or something like that." So it wasn't a complete lie. So some similarity in that story that that a miracle happened. The circumstances were a little different, and also that was a much earlier era. Ravashi here was at the end of the time of the Gemara. It's a much later era. Now, one thing, the Rabbi Tatz in the book Their World Mask, we have it in the front over there, in the first two chapters, and talks about what is nature. And I found that the Sefer Chinuch in the mitzvah of Makkah to put a fence around your flat roof says this space really explicitly that for someone who does everything Hashem wants, there is no nature. Someone could fall off from a high area, from a high place, and nothing would happen to them. But if someone is trying to rob you or trying to burglarize your house and they fall off the roof, okay, so that person is not a tzaddik because they're trying to burglarize you. Demos. Is it good? So a big tzaddik, a big tzaddik would fall off of the Sears Tower and be fine. But for someone who wasn't a tzaddik, they would fall off someone's roof, they would get hurt. So you need the fence for them, not for a tzaddik. And Rabbi Tatz brings, it's a famous Gemara in Tainus that once not Chanina, what was his name? Chanina ben Dosa, he was very poor and he made do with very little. And it was frustrating to his wife. So there's a bunch of stories about that. One story was that she said, "We have no money, we need money." He davened, and then this like a long stick, not of gold came down. It was worth for just appeared, and then he had a dream that in Gan Eden everyone had a table that had 4 legs, and he had a table that was 3 legs. So he realized he was losing his some type of portion from the Olam Haba, so he davened that it should go back, which I don't know that itself would be I mean, obviously the Gemara can't be taken literally, but we know Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa was extremely poor, and once his wife put, I think, vinegar in the Shabbos candles instead of oil, and she realized that, and she was very upset, and Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa said, just like Hashem says that oil could light, you could burn oil to have a light. He could also make a vinegar make a light, and it lit from, and the vinegar that she poured in had made it fueled the wick. So there is some type of thing. I don't know what to call it better than a thing. An idea, concept that Chachamim were able to control nature, break nature, whatever you want to call it. So Rabbi Elisha Baal Kanafayim, the one with the miracle with the tefillin, and this is a little different than Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa saying that just like oil can fuel a wick, vinegar can fuel a wick, but I don't know, to some extent that there's some connection. There must be some connection between those ideas. Another possible way to explain this, I think the Drushos Haran says, now there's an article Drushos Haran. When I learned this, there was no article Drushos Haran, and I still haven't looked in article Drushos Haran. I haven't. He, in discussing, I don't remember the whole thing, but in discussing why Moshe hit the rock, he pointed out, why did Moshe hit the rock? Well, because Hashem told him to bring the staff to the rock. So Moshe thought, oh, last time Hashem asked me to bring the staff, he wanted me to hit the rock to make their water. So today, if Hashem told me to bring the staff with him, it must be because he wanted me to do the same thing. But that wasn't true, because when a nace happens, something about the nace from the miracle gets, let's say, rubbed off, so to speak, obviously not tangibly, on the item. So because the staff had been used to get water from the rock once before, because that miracle had already happened once, A, you should use that thing again, but B, you don't need to do as much of a effort as you did the first time. So the first time he had to use the stick, and he had to hit the rock. This time, if he would just have the stick there and talk to the rock, the miracle would happen again. He wouldn't have had to do the same thing of hitting the rock the second time. So I believe I don't think that's Ramban. I think that's what the Drushos Haran says. So with the idea of the Drushos Haran, we could say that Rav Ashi, he didn't conjure, and I don't mean to use the word conjure, because we didn't use any magic or kishuf, but the reason that he said this tsaras was because Rav Ashi felt that there was something tsaras around, so he was able to use that to, obviously, the miracle would attach to something, and I'm not comfortable talking about that he's making a miracle, but he was able to somehow attach it to this tsaras, this sense of tsaras that he felt around. And that's why he used the excuse that he found that there was leprous meat in there. There was a certain Roman who said to a certain woman, Minasvatli, marry me. Amrle lo. She said no. Azal Isiri Mane. So he bet and got pomegranates. Pale, he opened them, Achal Kama, and he is eating the pomegranate before her. They're in front of her. So the word pali, when he opened it, Rashi says it was like he cracked it open. Why does it have to be like that? I don't know, but he cracked open the pomegranate instead of just opening it. But it's probably the way you open a pomegranate. Kol maya detzari la, all the saliva was causing her pain. Blate, she swallowed. Below havle ad zag la. But he didn't. So Rashi says that this saliva it's similar to what Agamar was talking about. You see, the tartness, I guess, because the other stuff seemed to have vinegar in it. The pomegranate isn't vinegary, but I guess the tartness is kind of similar to a sharpness of a vinegar. So she smelled the tartness of the pomegranate, and so it was causing her to develop a lot of saliva, and so it was becoming dangerous for her that she's not eating it, and he wasn't giving it to her, and he kept eating until zug. So Rashi says that basically her face was bloated and blew up, and her stomach, and she became clear like glass. So I don't think it literally means clear like glass, but it's the zug, it does mean glass, but it could be that the glass in those days was more whitish than clear. So she looked kind of like glass, which could be a whitish, that she was very pale because of the desire that she wanted these pomegranates, and she wasn't able to eat it. So she became very, very ill because of it. L'sof amarle imenesalach minastaf bli. So he said, if I heal you, will you marry me? Amarle in. She said yes. So what do you think he was going to do? So I thought that he was going to give her some pomegranate to eat and she would be healed. But that's not what happened. Azal Aitzi Rimane, he went and brought more pomegranates. Pali Ba'acha Kama. He cracked it open and was eating that. Amar La, he said to her, Kol Maya de Tzarilach Tov Shaddai, Tov Shaddai. Any saliva that you're getting that's, because of this, it's making you, it's painful to you because you really want this, spit it out. Don't swallow it. Adanafkamina Kihuta Yeruka, and she kept spitting out until something like a green leaf of a palm tree came out of her throat, v'is and she was healed. So I think the Rambam, I think I saw it in the Rambam, said that just like you should give uh, uh, the food to your shamish, it mentions that if someone is smelling food that's there, you don't swallow the saliva because it's dangerous. Obviously, we're learning from this Gemara. Now, why didn't he feed her? So it could be that once she reached this level of uh, of sickness, it's too late to feed it to her anymore. Maybe that's why he had to induce more saliva in her and tell her that she had to spit it out and not swallow it. Okay, but also Betzemer. So the Mishnah said that the wife also has to, besides for the 7 main duties, she has to work with wool. So the Gemara says, Betzemer in Bepishtin lo. She has to work with wool, but not with flax. Masnis and Mani, Rabbi Yehuda. Who does our Mishnah hold like Rabbi Yehuda? The Tanya, because we learned in the Brisa. Eino kofalo lama lifnei aviv lo lama lifnei beno. He can't force his wife to stand, but in this case, Rashi says stand means to serve his father or his son. And he can't force her to give straw in front of his animals. But he can force her to give hay to his bakar, a different type of animal. Rabbi Yehuda Omer af enokofa lasos bepishtan. Rabbi Yehuda says he also cannot force her to work with linen or flax. Mipnei shepishtan masrechas apeh. It does something bad to the mouth. And it makes the lips swollen. And this is true about Roman flax. So I mean, I don't know how this stuff works. So I do know that the flax, when you grow the flax and you have to soak it in order to make it into linen, and it's extremely stinky process to make the flax into linen. But when it becomes linen, I don't know at what stage it stops being smelly. But it could be that if it's, or whether it's from the smelliness or just from chemicals that they have to use to make it linen, it could be that something like that caused certain things to the mouth. Uh, so it's much so because there's this unintended consequence of working with linen. His Rabbi Huda holds his wife doesn't have to work with linen, but wool does not have these side effects, so it's not a problem. Rashi mentions in about a side point here about to give she doesn't have to feed some type of animals, but she does have to feed other types of animals. So Rashi brings two possibilities. The animals that she doesn't have to feed is a horse and a donkey, and the animal that she does feed is um, a more domesticated breeds of animals. And Rashi says the problem is that the horse and the donkey are more aggressive and might try to, their sexual desires might try to be externalized towards the woman, so he can't make her, it shouldn't make her go to those animals. And Rashi heard a different explanation, so that's what Rashi thinks the pshat is, but he heard a different pshat that he can't force her to feed his male animals, but he can the female animals. And the difference between the Rashi's opinion and the opinion that the second opinion that he brings is, let's say, a male sheep, something that's a more meek, domesticated male animal. According to Rashi's explanation, could make her feed that animal, and according to the second explanation, because it's a male animal, the husband couldn't make his wife feed that animal. Okay, another 2 dots. And the first medium wide line, Amar of Malkio. Rabbi Eliezer said in our Mishnah, even if she brought in 100 servants, she still has to work with wool, because if you do nothing, that is going to cause big trouble. It'll lead to Zima. So Amar of Malkio, Amar of Adabarava, Rav Malkio said the name of Adabarava, Halacha, Rabbi Eliezer. We pass him like Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, so turn the page here. Amar Rav Chanina Braid Rav Ika. Rav Adabarava, Rav Chanina, the son of Rav Ika, said, Shvod Shvachos V'Gumos Rav Malkio. Belur say for Maklo Gvin Rav Malkia. So there's one person's name was Malkio with a vav at the end, and there was one whose name was Malkia with an aleph at the end. So there's 3 cases that Rav Malkio discussed. One was the case of if you cooked with a spit, a shpud, on yantif, does it become muktzah now that it was used, and can you move it or not? Shvachos, our case about a woman who brings a lot of maidservants into the marriage, does she still have to do a little bit of work, let's say with the wool? And gumos. The halacha of gumos is, we learned, or we've discussed many times, that a girl is a katana, and then when she starts bringing signs of physical maturity, she becomes a nara. So the signs of physical maturity are pubic hairs. So there's a halacha. Ramalkio said that we don't necessarily need to see that she has 2 hairs to be a gedola, but if we see 2 follicles or pores that the hair would come out of, even if we don't see the hair, that's a sign of godless, because I guess these pores that the hair comes out of don't develop until she's a gedola, until she's a nara. Anyway, so this is an extremely important halacha in regard to knowing. In the time of the Beit when they were looking for actual physical signs of godless. So this halacha is that you don't need to actually see the hair, but you just need to see the follicle that it comes out of. So those statements were made by Rav Malkia. Beluris Efer Maklo Gvina Rav Malkia. Rav Malkia said, Beluris, there is a certain type, I don't know if nowadays we would call it a certain type of mullet, I guess, but not a hole in the back, not the entire back of the head, but there was one strip in the back that people for their avodah zarah didn't cut off. They let that grow along. So if you were a barber, you weren't allowed to cut near that strip, so because you couldn't contribute towards the goy's making this strip of hair for his avodah zarah. A from alkala is that nowadays we have neosporin or things like that, but in those days they used to use some type of coal, not coal, but some type of, it was the ovens that obviously burned wood and stuff. They would take some type of charred piece and put that on a wound, and that was what they used as medicine. Should I hold that? Oh, my boo-boo? No, that wasn't for my boo-boo, but that's very good that you thought of that. So they would use that as the neosporin in that time. But the thing is that if you have an open wound and you put something in there, when the skin heals, you're going to see a mark underneath that. And what's that like? That's similar to how a tattoo works. So this is more towards the end of Makos, when it talks about the prohibition of tattoos. That's where this halacha is. So one opinion was you're not allowed to use these ashes from the oven and put it on a wound because it's like a tattoo. But the Gemara says there, but someone else argued and said, no, the fact that they'll see that there's a scar there, they know that you were using this as a healing technique, not as a tattoo. So Rav Malkiah made a statement about that halacha. So Rav Malkiah says you're not allowed to put ashes because they leave a mark on the skin and it looks like a tattoo. The Gemara there brings a different opinion there who says no, because people will see that you have a scar, they'll know that it wasn't that the mark wasn't from a tattoo, but it was that you put this on to help it heal. And cheese, that if you can't use cheese of a non-Jew, there's different reasons why you couldn't use a cheese of a non-Jew. Rav Malkiah said that they used to coat it with fat from a non-kosher animal. So I mean, the cheese, it's a very big important halachas about it, but basically, just some of the halachas behind it is that if you put certain things into milk, the milk will get hard and form a cheese. One thing that's really good at doing that is a piece of a stomach from a cow. Problem is, if you take a piece from a dried out piece of a stomach of a cow, well, maybe not when it's dried out, because of the enzymes and the bacteria that are in the regular cow stomach to help it digest, just like we have bacteria in our digestive system help it digest food. When you put that into the milk, that reacts with the milk, it makes it hard into cheese. The problem is that the cow of a stomach is fleishix and milchik is milchix, and if you do that to have cheese, it's basar b'chalaf, because it's a mixture. It's not a cooked mixture, but it's a mixture where without this fleishik part that you put into the cheese, it wouldn't have become hard into cheese. So there are also vegetable starters or vegetable based things that you put into the milk and it makes it cheese. So scientifically, I don't know that much details about it, but cow's milk will become kosher milk can be made into cheeses. Non-kosher milk can't be made into cheeses. So you're not worried that this cheese is made out of pig's milk. So, but still, we're not allowed to use cheese made by non-Jews. So what's the reason? So Rav Malkiah's reason is that even though the cheese itself came from kosher milk, but they coated it with non-kosher fat on the outside. A different opinion is, I'm not going through all the opinions, but one opinion is, let's say they mix some camel milk or pig milk with kosher milk, so it could become cheese, but there would be holes. Think of, the Tom and Jerry, the cheese with all the holes in it. So the non-kosher milk, which doesn't harden, would be as a residue around the holes in the cheese. So those part can't get, so not kosher milk can't become cheese, but if you put it as a certain amount into the cheese, the rest of the milk will turn into cheese, but the not kosher milk will stay as residues inside the cheese where there's air bubbles or things like that. But Rav Malkiah said the reason is they would smear it with non-kosher meat. So these halachos aren't important for our Gemara, other than that one of them is Rav Malkiah. But the point is that when there was a Rav Malkiah and Rav Malkiah, Rav Papa Rav Chanina Breda Rav Ika wanted us to be clear about which amo. You want to sit on my okay? Which statements were made by Rav Malkiah and which statements were made by Rav Malkiah? So when they would say over the statements, they would say it over in the name of the right person. So that was just to have proper transmission of Torah Shabbal Peh. That's the purpose. And because one of these 6 halachos but it was 3 by Ramalkio and 3 by Ramalkia. One of them was our Gemara, so we mentioned this mnemonic or this fact, so we'll remember properly to say the halachas over in the name of the right person. Rav Papa, remember, Rav Papa says it slightly differently. Masnisin or Masnis or Rav Malkiah. If it's a Mishnah or a Bryce, it's Rav Malkiah. Shmaitza Rav Malkiah. If it's a Gemara, it's Rav Malkiah. V'semanach, and the mnemonic is Masnisa Malkisa. The Mishnayos is a queen, so it has a vav at the end. So Rav Malkiah with an aleph at the end, a feminine form, that's going on a Mishnah. My benayu, what's the difference between Rav Chanina Brei Ravika and Rav Papa? The difference would be our Gemara, which who said it? According to our Gemara, it seemed to be Rav Malkiah, but according to Rav Papa, excuse me, it would according to Rav Papa, it seems it would be Rav Malkiah because it was about how we paskin in our Mishnah. Okay, 2 dots. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says that.
Naughty.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Abba.
Yeah. That even if she brings a lot of, if he makes a vow that his wife is not allowed to do work, he has to give her ksuva and divorce her because it's dangerous, and leads to immorality if she has nothing to do. So the Gemara says, Hainu Tanakama. This is the same opinion as the Tanakama, who says that even if she brings so many servants into the marriage, she still has to do something, because if she has nothing to do, it's a recipe for immorality or for disaster. So the difference is very strange. If she plays with dogs, or she plays a certain game, Art Scroll translates it as chess. Rashi says that it's a game, that it's a game that has 16 light squares and 16 dark squares, or 15 white and 15 things. So it's some type of game. So if she would be busy either with playing with the dogs or playing this game, playing checkers or chess, so according to that would keep her busy. So Rashi says if that's all she had to do, it might lead to immorality, but she won't go crazy because she'll be busy with this stuff. It'll keep her from going crazy. Because if you have literally nothing to do, that's when you're going to go crazy. So 2 comments about this. One is that I haven't mentioned in a long time, but Anatoly Sharansky and what was the name of the other one?
Mendelovich?
Yeah, Mendelovich. Yeah. So when they were in the punishment hall or whatever it was called, so part of the reason that's a torture is if you have no sensory deprivation for the that will make you go crazy. So I think Mendelovich mentioned, so he like because he would go through psukim that he knew or Torah that he knew. So he kept something on his mind, so he didn't go crazy and was able to overcome it because he didn't allow himself to go for his brain to shut down. He was thinking about things that meant something to him. So even Narishkeit, playing with these little dogs or playing a game like that, is enough to stop you from going crazy, but it still might lead to other problems and from the Mishnah of immorality. The second thing is, are you actually the permissibility to have? We saw at the end of the first chapter or the second chapter, was about not being able to have dangerous dogs. Wait, don't touch over there. Oops. Oh, do you want to watch Layla?
Yeah.
Layla in the Loop?
No,
No?
Takamot.
Okay. Hold on, hold on, hold on. No, no, no. No. Yeah. So there's a Gemara at the also in this towards the end of the seventh parak above a comma, are the so this is also that we have a book over here, Pets and Halacha. It's we haven't had it for so long. Just here, I have to put you down for a second, okay?
Okay.
But just the appropriateness of owning a pet in halacha. So I mean, the Gemara doesn't say that you have to own the pet, but but she would go to the she volunteered at the local animal shelter, so that would keep her from going crazy because it gave her something to do. So it doesn't necessarily say that you have to own the animals, but the propriety of owning pets is something that needs to be discussed because some things in regard to Shabbos, the way of pets are usually muktzah on Shabbos, Pesach time, depending on what the pets eat, you might have trouble, finding stuff that's not chametz to feed the pets. So there are things to know. I shouldn't necessarily know, but there needs to be discussed of owning pets and things like that. So this book, I didn't read it, but there's stuff that we have to know about it. So okay, on page 2 here it says it's permitted to own all small kosher non-grazing animals. In modern times, it's permitted to own rabbits, monkeys, and other small non-kosher animals as well. And there's footnotes on here. Oh, here. And most halachic authorities permit owning a dog that does not bark or bite. So I couldn't find on our Gemara when we learned that Gemara about you're not allowed to have a dangerous dog. What definition of dangerous dog? About 3 or 4 weeks ago, I found a discussion about it, and part of the thing is that if you would have a dog, if a pregnant woman would hear a dog bark, they thought it was a big sakana to the pregnant woman. So, so he writes here, he says here, this Rabbi Chaim Albelsky, here's what the book looks like. Most halachic authorities permit owning a dog that does not bark or bite. So too, it is permitted to own a dog whose bark does not frighten people. It is certainly permissible for a blind person to own a seeing eye dog, for it's clear that these animals are highly trained and pose no threat. And Moshe Feinstein does have a tshuva, because you're not allowed to bring a dog into a shul or something like that. If someone could bring a seeing eye dog into shul, that's not so popular, even if it's highly trained. But but again, the Gemara here doesn't talk about literally owning the dog. The Gemara can make sense even without owning the dog. But if we say that you have to own the dog, you have to know halachos and proprieties about having pets. I know that in a lot of places where I went in Yehuda and Shomron when I was in Israel, many of those families had dogs because Muslims really don't like dogs and they're very afraid of dogs. So it's a security measure for them to have dogs. He mentioned in the book that that's okay. Okay, Mishnah. So we're going to talk into here what is okay. So we mentioned a few times, and we said it most recently in regard to the onus of mafata, the seduced woman. So we mentioned that the pasuk says in Parshas Mishpatim that if you would take an additional wife, and he had an Ama Ivria as one wife, I think. She'eraksu va'ona solo yigra. Her food, her clothing, and her ona cannot be diminished. So what's ona? So according to many opinions, ona means the marital relations that he's obligated to her. One of the Rishonim, maybe it's the Rashbam in Parshas Mishpatim, says lodging, housing, because a ma'ona could be like, or a ma'on is like a palace. So on comes from that word that you have to give her a roof over her head. Rabbi Avishai David, recently put out a book of stories of Talmidei Chachamim that he interacted with. He mentioned that Rav Shizgal, who was Ramosha Feinstein's son-in-law, who died very young, and he died very young, and he was good friends with Rav Aaron Soloveitchik, and Ramosha said that I think when he would go visit his Rav Aaron's mother-in-law, I think the Rebbitzin Ella Soloveitchik's mother, Rebbitzin Shurin, I think she lived very close on the Lower East Side. I think she lived like next door to Rav Shizgal. So when Rav Aaron would go there, Rav Shizgal would come to talk and learning with Rav Aaron the whole time. Rav Shizgal was extremely focused on learning. He had no time for anything else. All he wanted to do was learn and learn and learn. It was a very special masmid. And Rav Aaron, I think, gave the main hesped. Okay, thank you. When he was nifter, and if you look in the Art Scroll book, I don't know in the second edition, but there what they changed to it. But I think there was a chapter about Rav Shizgal in the biography about Ramosha in the Art Scroll biography of Ramosha Feinstein. So he gave, to the reason I'm mentioning that is that Rabbi David said that Rav Shizgal said the pshat in Ona is that you have to make time for your wife. He said that's the plain pshuta shel mikra. So this Gemara is, for the main part, is talking about Ona being marital relations, and it's the obligation that a man, depending on what profession is he in, what profession he is in, especially if he has a job that requires him to travel, how much time, what's his obligation in marital relations to his wife. So the first Mishnah first says, if he makes a vow that he's not going to, for example, he said that the pleasure of the marital relations he is forbidding on himself, or the pleasure of marital relations with her he's forbidding on himself. He's made a vow. So Rabbi Shammai says that vow lasts for 2 weeks. Or if he made it for longer than 2 weeks, he would have to divorce her. If you would make it for longer than 1 week, he would have to divorce her. But if it was less than a week, he doesn't have to divorce her. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to list the Ona, the time, for different professions. Talmidim yotzim l'talmud Torah shelo b'rshus shloshim yom. Now, students are able to leave their house in order to learn Torah without without their wife's permission for up to 30 days. So even though from the fact that from the first halacha that if he makes a neder that against tashmish, he for more than a week, according to Beis Hillel, he's not allowed to separate from her for more than a week for this reason. But if the husband is going to learn Torah, he can go for 30 days without permission. And we'll see in the Gemara more stuff about this. So we're not going to talk more about this now. However, one famous thing, Rabbi Akiva was right. So Rabbi Akiva is a famous thing, but that was with rishus. That was with permission from his wife. And the second thing to know about that is that I forgot what the Gemara is, but the Rambam brings down in Hilchos Talmud Torah that even though ben shmona esrei lechuppah, you're allowed to postpone that if you're in the process of learning Torah. So I think Ben Azai, someone like Ben Azai, I think he was already 40 years old, but he was so busy learning, he would never stop learning. So he hadn't gotten married yet. So if people think that it's very important to learn Torah, it might go hand in hand with the fact that they're not supposed to get married when they're 18. They may be supposed to learn Torah with a lot of diligence and postpone marriage a little bit. But that's not our sugya, but it is tangentially related. Hapolim Shabbos Achas. Laborers, regular workers can leave for a week from their house. Ha'ona Hamurah Torah, the time which, according to the Torah, a husband has to be with their wives. Hatayalim b'chol yom. Tayalim is every day. The Gemara will say what tayalim are. Hapolim shtayim b'Shabbos. Laborers twice a week. Hachamarim achas b'Shabbos. Donkey drivers once a week. So they might go out of town. So imagine this as a flight attendant. Not an international flight attendant, but even on a domestic flight, they might take a trip of four hops and then come back or whatever it is. So they're not home a few nights a week. So chamarim, the donkey drivers, have to be sure they're home at least once a week. Hagamalim achas shoshim yom. The camel drivers once every 30 days. Now that's because they would go take caravans and go farther distances. So for their work, they have to go and come back. They have to be home once a month. Sapanim achas shisha chadashim. Sailors once every 6 months because they go even further in the sea. Diva Rabbi Lazar. These are the opinion of Rabbi Lazar. So Gemara, my time at the base Shammai. What's the reason of a Shammai that if he makes a neder for longer than 2 weeks, he has to divorce her, but if the neder is for less than 2 weeks, he doesn't have to divorce her. Gamri miletas nekeva. He learns it from the halacha of a woman who gives birth to a baby girl. Because the halacha for a baby girl is, so on a diraisa level, on a Torah level, she's tmeya for 2 weeks, for 14 days. And then even if she sees blood after 14 days, we call that dam tahor. That's tahor dam for an additional 66 days. And any blood she sees after the 14 days, but less than 80 days, so in those following 66 days, midiraisa, she's tahora. Now nowadays, any time a woman sees a blood, she's tmeya, needs to count 7 clean days. So this doesn't apply nowadays, but that's on the Torah law. So because when she gives birth to a baby girl, she's tmeya for 2 weeks. So the fact that they have to refrain from relations for 2 weeks is not a cause for divorce. Beis Hillel learns it from giving birth to a baby boy. So for a baby boy, she's tmeya for 7 days. The blood that comes from the birth for 7 days is tmeya, and then for the next 33 days, if she sees red, we say it's tahor blood. It's not blood that makes her tmeya. Okay. Now around 61b4 in the art scroll. Beis Hillel nami nigru miletas nekeva. Why doesn't Beis Hillel learn from giving birth to a baby girl that she's tmeya for 2 weeks? So Gemara says, if the source is giving birth, is learning the time of separation from a wife is learned from a woman who has a baby, that's true. There's no reason to not learn it out from giving birth to a baby girl and have 2 weeks. Beis Hillel nida gamrila. Beis Hillel learns it out from nida, and nida is a week. Now again, midiraisa was a week. Then there was takana Rabbi Besados was there was a takana Rabbi Besados, but nowadays we hold like Reb Zera. Even if they see a little amount of blood, they have to count 7 clean days, which is not what he's talking about there, but that's what halacha that we hold nowadays. So what's a machlokas of why does Beis Hillel learn it out from nida, and why does Beis Shammai learn it from a new mother who just gave birth? Marsavar midi d'shchiach midi d'shchiach. We should learn something that's common from something that's common. What's more common? A woman becoming a nida or having a baby? Having a need is more common, so we should learn it from something common. Umar Savar, but Beishamai holds midi dehugarim, mimidi dehugarmla. Something that he caused should be learned out from something that he caused. If he made a vow forbidding himself from having relations with her, that's something he caused. And if she has a baby, that's not something that she did herself. That's something that he had to participate in to cause that tuma. So therefore, Beis Shammai says something that he had a hand in should be learned out from something that he had a hand in. So it doesn't. We don't learn out from Nida. We learned it out from having a baby. Let's just try to finish this. Ahmad over here. Amar Rab said machlokas b'mafarish. The machlokas b'Shabbat is when he specified how long this vow was for. But if he just made a vow without making any specific time, everyone holds he has to immediately divorce her and pay her the ksuva. Meaning, if a woman would do something wrong, that we'll learn in a little bit later, and not today, but and not in the next couple of weeks. But there's a Mishnah. If she does certain things wrong, they have to get divorced. But because it's something that she did wrong, she doesn't get a ksuva. But in this case, the fact that she gets a ksuva shows that it's something that she didn't do anything wrong. So it's the husband voluntarily choosing to divorce her. Or by doing something that he has to divorce her, he has to pay the ksuva. Shmuel says the fil bistam nami yamtin. If he made the vow without a particular time of prohibiting her tashmish on him, we have to wait. Shama yimtza psach lenidro, because maybe he'll be able to find a chacham who will be able to be matter his neder. They'll find an opening in the way that he formulated his neder, and the chacham will be able to nullify the neder. So he has to wait either 2 weeks according to Beis Shammai or 1 week according to Beis Hillel. And how does Hatar Sundarim work? If he would have realized something at the time, something that existed at the time he made the vow, and he wouldn't have made the vow, then we can nullify the vow. But let's say he said, I hate gold, I don't want anything to do with gold. And then a week late, and then the next day, gold tanked, and then gold was worth $50 an ounce, and everyone was making everything out of gold. And now he can't have a fork or a knife because everything's made out of gold. That's not something that existed at the time he made the vow. So that wouldn't be grounds for the chacham to annul the vow. So the machlok between Rab and Shmuel is that Rab says immediately we have to divorce her. Shmuel says you don't immediately divorce. You try to find a chacham who can annul the vow. And to Beis Shammai, you have 2 weeks to annul the vow. According to Beis Hillel, you have a week. And if not, then you have to divorce her at the end of the week, according to Beis Hillel, or at the end of 2 weeks, according to Beis Shammai. Hapliga b'chadazimna. Why are Rav and Shmuel saying this? Or Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel already had this machlokas in a different Mishnah, which is later on. Adav's ayin. If a person made a vow that he was not going to accept any benefit from his wife for 30 days, excuse me, he forbade his wife to derive benefit from him for 30 days. Yamod Parnas. We have to basically set up a trustee to support her in his stead, because he's not allowed to. So he has to put up someone else who's going to be like a trustee to support her. But if he made a vow for more than 30 days, he has to divorce her and pay her ksuva. And Rav said, that's only because he mentioned the term of 30 days. But if he didn't mention any time at all, he just says, I'm not letting you have any benefit from me, to his wife. According to Rav, he has to divorce her right away and give her ksuva. Even if he gave it without any amount of time, they have to wait. Because maybe they will find an opening for his neder, and the chacham will be able to annul his vow. So, according to the way we explained Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, this argument here is the same argument over there. And if we have it in one case, why do we do it in another case? Now, Ramosha in 1999, the end of 1999, in December, Hanukkah time, he gave a share about why isn't Hanukkah in Torah Shabbat Peh. And basically, Moshe's answer to that question was that there was something called Megillus Tainus, which was days that you were not allowed to fast on, or days that were fast days for different reasons, and that was Torah Shabbal Peh, and it had a lot of details about Hanukkah. So because Torah Shabbal Peh, so later when we had the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah says that Batla Megillus Tainus. For just about everything, Megillus Tainus has no halachic significance anymore. But at the time, Megillus Tainus was Torah Shabbal Peh, and it had and there was a lot in it about Hanukkah. So he said they didn't need to put Torah Shabbal Peh, a Masechta Hanukkah. There's a Masechtas Megillah, but there's no Masechta about Hanukkah because all the details we need to know about Hanukkah were listed in Megillus Tainus. And part of when Rabbi Yehuda Nasi wrote the Mishnah, he only wrote what was needed, and he wrote in a concise way. He wouldn't do anything repetition. So based this on the way that Ramosha said in that share, if Rabbi Yehuda Nasi made this principle in that Mishnah there, he wouldn't have to put the same principle in two Mishnayos. That would be redundant. And in the Torah Shabbal Peh, we only write the bare minimum amount. So to write the same machlokas twice would be wasting words. And the Torah Shabbal Peh, even according to the opinions, because it's machlokas between the Rambam and the Rashi, if Rabbi Yehuda Nasi actually wrote down Mishnah or he just composed an oral text, according to some opinions, even making an oral text of Mishnah saying this is what Torah Shabbal Peh is reducing the Torah Shabbal Peh, and we needed the heter of Eis Lasos Hashem to allow him to make a text of Torah Shabbal Peh, even though it was only oral. Others say that the part that was a problem was writing it down to not forget it. But either way, it would have to be as concise and not repetitive. So why did we have to have it in this Mishnah and that Mishnah? So the Gemara says Tricha. We need to know in this case and in that Mishnah also to eat Marbaha. If we only know in this case about marital relations, Rav Rav needed to tell us in this case because in regard to giving her food or clothing, you're allowed to set up a trustee to give her food or clothing. Can you set up a trustee to give her marital relations? No. So you couldn't learn that halacha from this halacha. So just because we knew it over there, we wouldn't know it over here. So the Mishnah needed to tell us in this case also. But in the case of giving her monetary support for her food, for her clothes, the extra befiners that you're able to make a trustee to give her support, Ema Modi Shmuel, I might think that he agrees to Shmuel that he doesn't need to divorce his wife right away. Yet Shmuel Rav still holds that even in that case he has to divorce her right away if he didn't list a case, an amount of time. And if we've only learned the case over there, I would say only in that case Shmuel says you could delay it up to 2 weeks or up to a week or two to find a chacham to be mater neder of a baha. But in this case, I might think that he might agree to Rav that she needs to be divorced immediately. So therefore, we needed both cases. We had the machlokas Shmuel and Rav, or the Mishnah in both cases, and Rav and Shmuel in both cases, because if we would have had one, we wouldn't have been able to learn it to the other case.